Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Elder Scrolls Lore. Before we begin, I'd like to make a shout out for Ares for allowing me to use his music, and to the Discord chat with the link in the description below and in the channel header. Feel free to join it. We can talk about gaming, lore, a few other things. With that being said, today we're going to be talking about the city-state of Kragenmoor. Kragenmoor? Going with Kragenmoor. It sounds more like that. And with that being said, there's not too much news in terms of that, but let's begin. Kragenmoor is one of the 8 major cities in the province of Morrowind and is the capital of the Varanese region in the area known as Stone Falls. Kragenmoor has become a very powerful place in the Dunmeri economy, being occupied by the great houses of Hulalu and Dress throughout the eras. It is a farming city that feeds the greater Stone Falls region and their illustrious cities. Now, Kragenmoor is situated in the western mountains of Morrowind alongside the Valus Mountains that border the province of Cyrodiil. The land that Kragenmoor inhabits is where the Ashlander population of Stone Falls lives, primarily. Notable groups include the Ulath tribe and the Kagash tribe, and are known to have settlements throughout Varanese. The Varanese Valley is fertile with ash-ridden land. Several plantations and farms are known to operate around the city of Kragenmoor, selling their produce in the markets. The city is well known throughout the land as a farming settlement, feeding the Dark Elves from their faraway cities of Ebonheart and Davin's Watch. East of Kragenmoor is one of the twin volcanoes of Stone Falls, the Tormented Spire, which overlooks the western portion of Stone Falls and the House Sadal, one of the Brothers of Strife. Now, the leader of Kragenmoor is the only person with access to the Tormented Spire, making the volcano rather inaccessible. Kragenmoor itself is one of the smaller cities in Morrowind, but it is a trading hub first before a city. Now, the city-state is built atop the hills of Varanese, just before the lush grazelands of the Deshan Plains. Upper Kragenmoor is a circular steppe made atop a Dunmeri-style stonework with bridges connecting to neighboring hills, divided by a sunken lane that represents the lower Kragenmoor. Sorry, I don't know why I said represents. The hills would house the local guilds, among the other things like the Hissing Gawar, a prominent tavern in Kragenmoor, and the House Barracks. Most of the bridges that had stairs that lead to Upper Kragenmoor. In the central square is the Grand Master's Palace, where the leader of the city resides, overlooking the grazelands and the town. The bridge west of the town square leads to the House Dress Crypts, which are somewhat expansive, almost as significant as the city-state itself. Lower Kragenmoor is a sunken lane where slaves of House Dress and the overall poor are known to stay, whenever they are not working. The main road through the Varanese connects to Lower Kragenmoor, and another route extends past the Hissing Gawar, leading to the hills of the ancient ruin. Sorry, my dog walked in and distracted me, and now I think she wants to go hang out, so give me a second. Should I edit that out? Probably not. We'll just keep going. The Great Dunmeri House of Ra'athim has been a prominent power throughout the first era of Morrowind, specifically in the Stone Falls region through their ancestral home, the city-state of Ebonheart. House Ra'athim extends their reach beyond Ebonheart into other cities in the land, including Kragenmoor. Yaris Ra'athim was queen of Kragenmoor during the Morrowind's trying times. She was one of the few Dark Elven rulers still around when the Nordic forces expanded their empire, conquering Morrowind itself, even capturing Ebonheart from House Ra'athim. Yaris's reign over Kragenmoor was still around during the Nordic occupation of Morrowind, continuing after when Moralin and his brothers and father had driven out the Nords of Ebonheart. The Nords were completely driven out of Morrowind in 420 of the First Era, when the War of Succession ended. It is unknown how long Yaris's reign had lasted at this point, but it was able to manage through the hard times. Now, during the interregnum of 582 of the Second Era, the city-state of Kragenmoor was under the occupation of the Great House Dress, and through the control of Omin Dress, the Grand Master of House Dress, around the same time, the Daggerfall Covenant had invaded the region of Stone Falls, leading to several casualties like Garen Indoril. Garin was the son of Tanval Indoril, and the Indoril war hero during the Second Akaviri invasion. Sorry about that. Names kind of mess me up sometimes. With the death of his son, Tanval gathered his vanguard and left for Kragenmoor to release Sadal of his brothers of strife onto the Covenant Armada in revenge for his son. Tanval traveled to Kragenmoor to force Omindres for the key to the Tormented Spire. To get what he wants, Tanval ordered his vanguard to kidnap Sendres to the House Dress crypts so that Omin would be forced to give him passage. When Tanval was given the key, he left Sendres in prison and headed for the Tormented Spire. The Ebonheart Pact followed Tanval to Kragenmoor and received the news about that Sendres and Tanval Indoril. An agent of the pact known as the Vestige was able to uncover Sen's whereabouts in the ancient Dress crypts through investigative work. Sendres was able to be rescued, and in gratitude, Omindres gave him the key to the Tormented Spire to stop Tanval Indoril once and for all. With the conquest of Hammerfell coming to an end, Tiber Septim was guided by Wulfharth to invade the province of Morrowind. Wulfharth was blinded by vengeance towards the Dark Elves of Morrowind after the Battle of Red Mountain had the Nords fall in defeat by the Elves. The Septim army had advanced across the Valis Mountains, attacking the Dunmeri settlements along the western border. Minor townships including Silgrad Tower and Cormaris View were attacked by the Septim army, eventually leading to the city-states of Kragenmoor and Blacklight being attacked as well. The great houses involved tried to fight on at the time, but they began to withdraw, accepting the invaders' rule over the province. House Redrin was the last standing defense against the Third Empire, but the conflict had ended when Vivek himself had appeared before his people at Vivek City to tell them that a negotiation would be created between the two factions. What came out of the negotiation was the Treaty of Armistice, which had not only brought Morrowind into the Septim Empire, but had closed off the subcontinent of Vardenfell, deeming it a Tribunal Temple protected area. This, among other requests made by the government of Morrowind, were also granted as well, including the exception of certain traditions that the people wanted to protect. Sorry, my dog is back, and how's it going, buddy? So, we're almost done. Now, going into the Third Era, during the Imperial Silicrurum of the between the years of 389 and 399 of the Third Era, Uriel Septim the Seventh was imprisoned along with Talon Warhaft in the Deadlands by Yager or Jogger Tharn. Tharn planned for months to capture the throne. Kind of know a little bit about this, and the Eternal Champion had planned at one point visited the city of Kragenmoor to recover one of the pieces of the Staff of Chaos, and the city of Kragenmoor at the time was under the rule of King Shalpar. The Septim Empire's incorporation into Morrowind had left people divided, calling King Helseth and the rest of the great houses the lapdogs of the Empire of Cyrodiil. There have been very few revolts throughout the Empire that intend to attack the Empire itself, including the rise of Calaxis Septim. There was one rebellion that started in Morrowind called the Drothmiri Army, which was created by Frothen Drothon, an archmage of the Great House Telvanni. Drothon had planned to topple the Septim Empire with the Daedric artifact known as Marunus' Razor. The Drothmiri army had grown to a threatening size, and by the time that Drothon had reached the city-state of Kragenmoor. But by the 17th of Rain's Hand, it became difficult to find mercenaries, but the army continued across the Velis Mountains and entered the Nibini Basin, where the Marunus' Razor would be buried within the depths of the Sunderclith Watch. It is unknown what happened to the rebellion after that. It can only be assumed that they were defeated, considering the Third Empire existed on afterwards. Technically still does. Now, during the Oblivion Crisis in 433 of the Third Era, the province of Morrowind was heavily affected by the Daedric invasion, though the city-state of Kragenmoor was oddly unaffected. At the time, the Caius Cosades, a spy master of the Blades, was stationed in Kragenmoor, where he witnessed a large increase in worship of Rakatosh, and ever since the events of the Imperial City with Martin Septim. Every skeptic, backslider, don't know why that took so hard to say, was so hard for me to say, but the tribunal guards would feverishly worship the local shrine of Akatosh. Usually the elves of House Halalu were lukewarm guests of feast, dedicated to the 9 divines, but after the crisis, the people of House Alalu have sought out divine counsel and faith for the divines. And this can only be assumed that this is also due to the fact that House Alalu had very, very close ties with the Empire as well. Now, with that being said, that is all we have today on the city-state of Kragenmoor. Now, other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. This was a lot of fun to make. There's not too much news today. Like I said, I've already kind of covered that. This is the second lore video, so that's probably why I'm recording today. So with that being said, I hope to see you guys around. Any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. And I hope you guys like and subscribe. Peace.